Hi, this is Bob Scully, and welcome to another edition of the World Show, Entrepreneurs, the Dobson Series. This week, an entrepreneur who started a company in an area where I think most of us would like to work, or at least we think we do. When we see a good movie or a good, or read a good crime novel, we think right away, hey, I could do that, it'd be fun. We would all like to be private investigators, PIs at one point or another, and get to the bottom of a mystery and find the culprit and find out who done it. Well, our guest didn't just think about it, he went and did it. Although he had a very distinguished career as a journalist, working for the Wall Street Journal, he became finance editor of their Asian edition, as a professor of law at the Benjamin Cardozo School of Law in New York City, where he still teaches. He wanted more, a bit more excitement, and so he started Charles Griffin Intelligence, which he now heads. Here's Philip Segal. Philip Segal, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm going to read from the Charles Griffin website. Thomas Magnum took his job seriously and would frequently correct someone who called him a private eye. Private investigators have, unfortunately, been typecast as snooping, bothersome characters who wear trench coats, pry into the business of others, and perform lonely stakeouts. If you have your heart set on spying on someone, a private eye is exactly who you should call. It would be more appropriate to call the new, more modern kind of investigation the gathering of intelligence. And indeed, intelligence, Charles Griffin Intelligence, right, is the name of the firm. Yeah. So we've come a long way from Philip Marlowe, and yet, as I read these fantastic examples, I encourage people to go to your website. It's a little bit similar. You are trying to get secrets that others want to hide desperately. That's basically it.
That's right. And I do sometimes wear a trench coat, but never on duty. No, that's true. We find facts. We're fact finders. Anyone could do what we do if they studied enough on how to do it. As lawyers, we work mostly for lawyers, and lawyers often try and do it themselves. And sometimes when it's a tough case, they call us because this is all we do. But it is a matter of finding out facts. Sometimes it's facts that people didn't try to hide, but they're just hard to get because they're in a courthouse in some county in California where you didn't know the person lived. So it's not that they're trying to hide it, but it's also difficult to find it.
And one thing that struck me is you have to be thorough, and it is time consuming, and there's a lot of people out there who peddle the opposite, like websites say for $50, we'll find out in every state what happened. It's not possible. You point out, and a lot of states have different rules. A lot of them are not fully, you can't Google them, they haven't put their stuff online, and therefore there's a lot of backbreaking or at least painstaking work to be done.
That's right, and we can never guarantee that we've looked everywhere because there are 3,000, just in the United States, 3,033 counties in the United States. And you have to go on site to each and every one of them before you can say this person has never been sued anywhere in the United States. And even if you're in a county, Queens County in New York, they're forever losing documents, losing cases. We'll say, well, the databases say that this person was sued in 2004, and you go and it turns out the case is missing. It happens all the time.
So maybe missing for a dastardly reason or just a stupid reason?
Probably incompetence, most of the time. And disorganization. And so we would never say to a person, a client, this person has never been sued, go ahead, it's fine. We would say, we searched these places, and this is what we found. We found nothing, or we found this. And that's all you can do. And to say we can get it all for you in $50, that's garbage. And
you give a very good object lesson on Madoff. You say, here's what, if you had just Googled Madoff's operation, and if you'd been a prospective investor, actually Madoff would have come off pretty well. And here's what would have happened. And you showed there would have been this, but that's all good. And what you had to do was look at the auditor, dinky little auditor, that's suspicious, and a number of other things. How would you, so let's say no investor did come to you on Madoff, right?
No.
Supposing one had, what are the basic steps?
Well, the basic steps would have been to say, let's look at the securities filings of this firm that Madoff has. And the very first thing that you actually can find on Google is that Madoff's firm filed its list of beneficial holdings, holdings that it owned. Even hedge funds starting in 2006 had to start filing what they owned. And Madoff in 2006 and 2007, at the end of each quarter, said that he had, I think it was about $100 million in stock holdings. Now, this is a person who supposedly manages billions of dollars. So I would have said to the client, are you sure this is the right company? Because the company you gave me doesn't have nearly that much money under management. Look at the stocks it owns. This is the, so are you telling me that they liquidate all their stocks at the end of each quarter and then buy them again? That doesn't sound very efficient. If that's the case, gee, why would they do that? Then I would have found obviously the article from 2001 where somebody said this doesn't work. It's impossible. The Arvidland article, which was based on a report that journalist read. But what's interesting about the Madoff case and saying, gee, there's not enough money under management, computer models don't really do a very good job at saying I should be seeing something and I'm not. Computer models are programmed to say, show me criminal record, show me sanctions by the SEC, show me sanctions by the investigating authorities.
And he had compliments from the SEC, the exact opposite.
He had compliments. But if you say, gee, this is supposed to be a big company and it doesn't look that big, that's a very hard thing to program a computer to tell you. That's something a person is better at figuring out. So I would have said to my client, either you've got the wrong company or something's not right here. Then, of course, there's the auditor who is in a tiny room in New City, New York, who's not a Big Four auditor. You always look to see whether they've changed their auditor and who their auditor is. And if it's an auditor,
you would have maybe driven by, because that's what the newspapers did after. They took pictures of the small, it's in a strip mall or something.
Yeah, well, maybe we would. I don't think we would have needed to do that. Probably Google Earth would have been enough to say this is a strip mall, and property records would have said this is a strip mall, and this person has no profile, no clients that we can find anywhere else, and it's a small place. It's
and a single client auditor is no longer really an auditor. He's basically an employee.
He's captive. No, that's a complete red flag. So even if it appeared, you'd say, well, even if he does have other clients, they can't be meaningfully large if he has a two-man office. So maybe this is a captive auditor. There were so many things about Madoff. Without having to know that his trading strategy probably wouldn't work, but just the size of the portfolio, the auditor, and whistleblowers trying to get people's attention who actually were carried in barons. Now maybe somebody would have said, if they weren't careful, well, I've got 500 favorable articles about him and one unfavorable one, so probably this is just a crank, this Barron's. But if you actually read the Barron's story, it's very persuasive.
Yes.
Because there's all kinds of...
Well, she discovered some of the things you're talking about. So.
She did, and the best thing, if you read that article, the best thing anyone said about Madoff was, if he is doing this trading strategy, probably he's taking more risk than he says he's taking. And that's already bad enough, but most of the people in that story said he can't possibly.
And a lot, I remember she called up some investment banks and said, well, we don't deal with them. And she called up enough to think, well, who does he deal with? Where's he buying all these stocks?
That's right. So it would have been very easy and very cost effective to stop your investment in Madoff. But people don't like to think, especially if you're rich enough to be able to afford Madoff. You think, well, I'm a pretty smart person. I have $8 million, and after all, these people had substantial amounts of money. And we don't like to think that we're going to be taken in by somebody like that. I mean, we don't normally want to buy house insurance, except the bank makes us have it. And we don't want car insurance, but we have to have that. So this is kind of, we don't underwrite, we don't insure you won't lose money, but we mitigate risk. And people don't really want to think that their investment is going to wipe them out.
Because it's
human nature.
Yeah, and in the same